Hello, everyone. Welcome to What the Faith Miami. I'm Ana Rodriguez Soto of the Florida Catholic, and I'm joined by Rocio
Christina Cabrera
Rocío Granado.
from La Voz
and
and
Christina Cabrera from the Florida Catholic.
Okay, and behind working the back behind the scenes here is Maria Alejandra Rivas from the communications office. And thank you everyone for being. And we have very special guest today. We have Katrenia Reeves-Jackman. She's director of the Office of Black Catholic Ministry here in the Archdiocese, and Dr. Donald Edwards, associate superintendent of Archdiocesan Schools. And the reason they're here is because November is Black Catholic History Month. And we wanted to highlight that, especially in light of what has been going on in the country right now. But I also think that it's a month that sort of falls by the wayside a lot of times, and it's often overlooked, especially among Catholics. So, Katrina, let's start with the reason why there is a Black Catholic History Month, and why is it in November?
Well, good morning, first of all, everyone. Let's talk about November. November is very special to the Black Catholics here in the U.S. So in 1990, it was established by the National Black Catholic Clergy Caucus of the United States, and we did it because in November the 3rd particularly is the feast day of Saint Martin de Porres, who was the first Black saint. And then, of course, we have Saint Augustine of Hippo, who was born in North Africa, and that falls on November the 13th. There's All Souls Day, November the 2nd for this year. And that, of course, is for us to commemorate all of the souls and the people and the slaves who came through the inner passage. So that brought us over to the United States and into North America. So it is a time for us to celebrate. We utilize it to talk about the contributions of our Black Catholics, because we didn't just start in the 1900s. Black Catholics began way back in with the Acts of the Apostles. We've been around for a while. We've had Black popes. We have Black saints. And as a matter of fact, we're going to be celebrating these candidates. We have 6 candidates who are up for sainthood now. So it's a time for us to celebrate who we are and what we are and our faith of Catholicism.
So you brought the question, who we are. So for the rest of us who may not be very familiar with it, who are the Black Catholics in the U.S.? You said, obviously the history goes back to the apostles. But Black Catholic History Month is a phenomenon in the U.S. So who are the Black Catholics in the U.S. And in the Archdiocese in particular? What percentage of Catholics are they in the country, in South Florida? You're a minority within a minority in the Catholic Church in the U.S. Now, that wouldn't be true in other countries, but in the U.S., yes.
Right. Well, in the U.S., there are approximately 70, we have over 70 million. 70 million. I was going to say 1,000, but it's 70 million Black Catholics. Absolutely. I mean,
It's a large
Catholic.
number.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Catholics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 70 plus million Catholics. Now, the percentage of Black Catholics so far approximately about 3 million. That's in the U.S. Now, in the Archdiocese of Miami, our numbers are about Catholics, about 1.3 to 5 million Catholics. And again, we are less than 1%. And I'm talking about Black Catholics within the Archdiocese of Miami. As a matter of fact, out of all of the parishes that we have in the Archdiocese of Miami, there are only 2 complete designated African American parishes. St. Philip Neri in Miami Gardens, and Holy Redeemer Catholic Church out in the Liberty City area. All of our other Black Catholics, and the Black Catholics, that's everyone under the African diaspora. And that includes our Haitian brothers and sisters, our Caribbean brothers and sisters, people who come from the islands to Miami. We are unique in that sense. And they are all of the African diaspora. But Black Catholic History Month, we're looking at our African American and all other Black Catholics.
Right, because sometimes that's the distinction that we see Haitians who speak Creole, so their culture, their language is different. We think of the English-speaking African American Catholics, but
Exactly.
you represent anybody who is in the, as you say, the African diaspora, who came to this new world somehow. Right.
Yeah, well, how they came here, and you know how we originally came. We were on those slave ships, and as those ships made their way through the inner passage and all up and down the seas and the oceans and through the rivers, slaves were either thrown off, jumped off, put off, so that they could be sold. So that's why you have Black Catholic, and of course, we got out according to our slave owners, who the slave owners were. Whatever their religion was normally the religion of the slaves themselves. And so you have a lot of Catholics all the way throughout the South Florida area, United States of America, everywhere. We're everywhere. But now particularly in not just particularly Archdiocese of Miami, but throughout the United States, you will find that, and as you said, sometimes people don't really know how many Black Catholics there are. And the reason is because we speak English, we become a part of the different parishes. And so we're not distinctive either in speaking Creole, or we're distinctive in speaking Spanish. We speak English. So we are Catholics. We are Black Catholics. Our differences would be our traditions, our culture.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. That's what makes the difference.
So let me talk a little bit about that in terms of how you grew up. I know Dr. Edwards grew up in Memphis. You, Katrina, have grown up in Miami, have very far. Your roots go here very far. So tell us a little bit about what it is to grow up Black and Catholic here in Miami, and then in Memphis, in the South. Well, Miami is not really the South, right? Not anymore. I don't know.
The true Southerners say we're not South.
That's right.
If you go to Jacksonville, they'll say, "Oh, well, Miami's not South." But actually, we are. We are South. Yes, I was born here in Miami. And not only am I a native Miamian, my mother was born here in Miami. Now, her mother was born in Georgia. Wow. So as you start to look at the heritage, but I was born here. My father came from the Bahamas. And so I was raised here in Miami. Overtown, which is the area outside of downtown Miami. I was born there in that area. My family, when they became Catholic, they would attend Jesu, because we did not have a Catholic church in the area, would attend Jesu Catholic Church. And unfortunately, Jesu practiced the norms of the time, and it was segregated, because we were segregated during that time. And so Black Catholics could attend Jesu. However, they could only sit in the back in the colored section. And it was the practice at the time that we weren't even allowed to receive communion until all of our white Catholic brothers and sisters had, and then we could receive communion. Now we, of course, I'm talking about my parents. I'm talking about the older generation from there. Sometimes they had to go after Mass downstairs to the basement in order to receive communion. That was the norm. So finally, the Black Catholics over town got together and started meeting in storefronts and in homes in order to have a Mass where they were comfortable and welcomed and did not have to be segregated in any way. The priests from Jesu would come to the homes and celebrate Mass. My Holy Redeemer, my elementary school was segregated. It was all Black. I lived in Liberty City. However, we had a white priest and we had white nuns. And it was not until I was in the 6th grade that I ever even saw a Black religious. I saw a Black nun. And they were the Oblate Sisters of Providence. And that's when we began to think, wait, maybe we could become a nun. Okay, this is something, not something that we might want to do, but that goes back to the importance of having some representation.
All right, seem to have lost Katrina there. Dr. Edwards, seems like a good time for you to share your experience in what is the South, right? Memphis, growing up Black and Catholic.
Well, I grew up in a mixed family, Catholic, Methodist, Baptist, but I really didn't grow up Catholic because my mother was Baptist. My dad, I often say my dad died Catholic, but when he lived, he didn't practice anything. So we went to the Baptist church with my mother. When I became a teenager, I wanted to go to the Catholic Church with my cousins and my friends, and I became involved in what did we call it? What was the youth group called?
Sodality?
No, it wasn't Sodality. Well, I can't.
CYO?
CYO, yeah, CYO. We got involved in CYO, go to the church every Saturday, etc., etc., etc. However, an important legend in my family is that when we moved over to the community where we settled in Memphis, the legend is my uncle and my dad went to St. John Parish, where there was a parish school, and they said, well, our children are Catholic, we want to get them in this Catholic school. And the priest told them, well, there's a school for colored children over on Walker Avenue. You can't come to this school. And legend has it that my dad said, oh, well, my children will never go to Catholic school. I mean, I'm not going to take my children. I don't know how to say this modestly. We didn't grow up in the ghetto. We grew up in a middle-class neighborhood, and my dad did not want us going to school in the area where one of the 2 Catholic schools were located. So we went to the public school. I am aware that my cousins and my friends went to these 2 Black Catholic parishes. They were the only places that Blacks could go if they were Catholic. Blacks in Memphis, Blacks could not go to the white parish. Ergo, the establishment of St. Anthony's on the north and St. Augustine, which was my family parish, still my family parish, on the south side of Memphis. So that was kind of my experience. I didn't really become involved in the church until I became a teenager. And at that time, I wasn't aware of how much discrimination there had been in the Catholic Church. We had a priest who, the priest who encouraged me to become involved in CUI was Jim Like. Jim Like ultimately became Archbishop Like, who was the Archbishop of Atlanta, after having been ordained a bishop for the Archdiocese of Chicago. But Jim wanted me to get involved with CYO. I was a musician. He wanted to have a choir. We got all involved in it. And I said, well, on an occasion, I said, well, why don't we go over to this parish or that parish and take the choir and so forth and so on. And we would do that. And we could go to the parish and sing. We'd go to the quote, end quote, white parish and sing. And they enjoyed having us sing in their parish. But when the singing was over, they wanted us to go. My perception of their perception of us was that we were a nice Catholic minstrel show. We came to sing for them, and when we finished singing, they wanted us to go. No cookies, no punch, no donuts. When the singing was over, go. That gives you some idea of my experience as a young Black Catholic.
And yet, you stayed with us. You committed to the faith more as a teenager of all things, right? When teenagers are leaving religion in general, and you've worked for Catholic schools, so that shows some kind of devotion, right?
Well, I actually was devoted to Donna Moon, who went to St. Augustine Parish. And when I went to St. Augustine Parish, I met Jim Like, and I liked Jim. I liked the other people in the CUI. That's why I became involved. Then I was unchurched for many years. When I went off from Memphis to Dallas to go to college, I was the organist at the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I was the organist at the Catholic Church. I was the organist at the Baptist Church. But I wasn't really involved. A quick story. A buddy of mine and I were very close. We had gone to high school together, to college together, and he had gone off to study in Chicago. He came back to Dallas, called me and said, I'm going to be at Sacred Heart Cathedral at the 4 o'clock Mass. Why don't you come over? I said, oh, come on, man. I don't play for the 4 o'clock Mass. I play for come to Mass. I went to the Mass. The Mass starts. Priest goes down the aisle. I'm up in the choir loft playing the organ for the Mass. The priest goes down the aisle. The priest gets down the aisle. He turns around, and the priest is my friend Gus. I was flabbergasted. When Mass was over, I went back to the sacristy, and I said, "Gus, what in the world are you doing up here being a priest?" He said, "Well, I went to seminary. I'm a priest." I said, "How in the heck did you become a priest?" He said, "Well, the Lord called me to be a priest." I said, well, "How in the world did the Lord get your number?" I don't know anything about the Lord calling you. Gus, my friend Gus, ushered me back into the Catholic Church.
Oh, that's a wonderful story.
Ultimately,
That's amazing.
became a choir director in the church, started teaching at the Catholic schools, and 50 years later, I'm still involved in Catholic schools.
Oh, that's a great story. But you both mentioned racism. Now, of course, the church does not condone racism. There are documents from the U.S. bishops that say we need to combat racism in society. Pope Francis has talked about that. How do you mesh those two, the teaching versus the practice back then, which, thank God, obviously has changed? And what are the documents that the bishops have written?
Well, the bishops have written several documents, and they go back all the way into the 1960s. But right now, the main one that we're dealing with from our U.S. bishops, Open Wide Our Hearts, and Open Wide Our Hearts is it's titled An Enduring Call to Love, and that is the pastoral letter against racism. And this was approved by the bishops back in 2018. Now, prior to that, we also had Brothers and Sisters for Us. That was back in 1979. It goes in, and there are several different documents, and you have your letters against racism. And as you mentioned, the Pope has talked about it. Everybody agrees that it is the original sin of the church, because the church was also involved, as you know, with being slave owners and dealing with those times. And what has happened is that the United States Catholic bishops have been working and working towards eradicating racism. But again, it comes down to the people. It comes down to the norms, the rituals of Catholicism. And as Dr. Donnie here was saying, is that most of us Blacks in America, you will find, will be of other religions. Catholicism is a faith base that we found comfort in. The few of us, the less than 1 million of us, particularly here in South Florida, it's our religion, it's our faith, it's what keeps us going. When I think about me, I've been raised in the Catholic Church all my life, actually, from a little girl. I've only been educated in Catholic schools. So the religion is what we have. And our bishops who say that racism is a sin, we have to get all of our parishes, our pastors, and the people to understand what that really means. When you walk into the parishes, do you see people of color represented in our services? Do you see people of color on the altar? Do you see us on the walls? Do you see us in the statues? We're there. We need to be recognized. We need to be celebrated, and giving the praise for our commitment to our faith.
Yes, absolutely. So that brings us to what can we do as parishioners? Not just the pastors, but as parishioners, how do the bishops suggest we combat racism in society? And really it's in ourselves.
Well, ultimately, an important point that the bishops make is taken from the prophet Micah, to what is it that the Lord requires of us? We know what the Lord requires of us, that we act justly, love tenderly, and walk humbly with the Lord. We are called to be people of tender love. We are called to be people who unite each other, certainly in prayer, certainly in faith, but also in life. In living, we're called to be uniters with each other. I think that is the message that the bishops give, and I think that's the message that we want to live. There are people, especially in the United States, who will never embrace people of other races. I've lived in the United States. I've lived in Dallas. I've lived in Memphis. I've lived in Cleveland. I lived in New York. I'm living in Miami. I've lived in England. I've been around a little bit. And actually, the greatest amount of racism that I ever experienced was when I was in England. It's horrible.
Really?
At that time, in the early 80s, Blacks and Africans were treated just horribly in England. What is it that you can do? What is it that we want you to do? Well, I don't want you to do anything. I want you to want to be my brother. I want you to want to be my sister. And I want you to be open to worshiping the Lord, praising the Lord, and building a life with me. That's what I want.
And if I can add to that too, it comes also to the fact that October is Respect Life. And we say respect life is from conception to the grave. Well, respect life is from conception to the grave also includes the life of people who are here, regardless of their color, regardless of their persuasion, regardless of their language. We are to, as Dr. Donna said, we are to love each other. If we learn to respect each other, if we learn to love each other and include each other, not that I am any better than you, you're any better than me. We should be able to live and love together. And what can you do? Or what can I do? I need to look around me. Look in my church. Is it really represented a representation of the people in the parish? Is it a representation of the people in our archdiocese? If everybody in there looks like me, and this is all that I know, then when you have one or two other people from a different culture, a different area, a different state who speak a little differently, do we exclude them or do we include them? You know, do we give our kids a chance to see themselves in positions? I was told there are children who've never seen a picture of a Black saint, maybe haven't even seen a priest, a Black priest. And in the U.S., in the Archdiocese of Miami, we do not have one single African-American Black priest. We have our priests from the Caribbean, we have African priests, but what about the priests of the Black Catholics, of the African-American? We don't have any. We might have one Black deacon. Where are the Black nuns? You see, that's we talk about respecting life and including those around us. What can you do? We need to be educated. We need to learn about each other. There's so many different resources now. Our National Black Catholic Congress website has many resources for learning about who we are. Who are Black Catholics? Who are they?
Well, you know, I had an experience sometime.
I'm sure we.
I would just share with you quickly. A white colleague of mine said something to me, Donnie, I just don't think I could ever be comfortable in the company of a group of Black people. He said, I like talking to you. You're a nice guy. You're kind of educated. You have a little way of speaking, but you know, I said to that person, you know what? I don't care what you like. I have no interest in what you like. I appreciate the fact that you find it difficult to love Black people. Allow me to love you. That's what I want you to allow me to love you. Get out of my way. Allow me to love you.
Right. Right.
That is what is most important from my perspective. I'm not looking for white people to do anything special for me. I'm not standing at the door with a tin cup in my hand looking for anything. Allow me to love you. And
That's wonderful. Yeah.
choose, be a part of me. If you choose not to be a part of me, that's okay too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, couldn't have said it better. And so let's talk about, you said educating ourselves about the others. So talk about some of the saints, Black saints that we have in the Catholic Church that people may not even realize. For example, St. Augustine of Hippo, North Africa. Pretty good chance. Rome, he was back in the 4th century. that he was one of our greatest saints was a black saint, San Martin de Porres. So we have 6 now from the U.S. In the process of beatification, and considering that Black Catholics are 1% or so of Catholics in America, in the U.S., 6 on the way to beatification is a pretty good record, I think. So, tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. All right. I'll start
One
off.
of them is very recent. I mean, Sister Thea Bowman. I'm going to mention her because I know that I've covered her. I've seen her around.
Exactly.
I appreciate you mentioning Thea Bowman. Thea Bowman was a personal friend of mine.
Wow.
Thea Bowman and I was a musician. Thea and I went around singing, and she would preach and evangelize. I'd go down to her house in Mississippi. We'd spend the day singing and playing music. What a powerful evangelizer she was. What a powerful preacher she was. How marvelous that we have the opportunity to share her life and her mission with others through the cause of her canonization. I just wanted to get that commercial in.
Well, I think it's great because usually, we talk about St. Augustine and the saints, they lived centuries ago. But here's a living, you knew her.
That's right.
You shared meals with her. You sang with her. I mean, I think that's a tremendous witness to this generation.
Yeah, it is.
It absolutely is. And of course, we mention her and people see her, but please go look up the information on her. Her address to the bishops, to the United States bishops it's powerful. It's still very powerful. And so that's one thing but now she experienced racism. She wanted to become a religious, and the order that she wanted to join, of course, they did not want to accept her. But if she had the faith, like most of our Catholic, our saints, and they do. Now there are 5 other candidates. Of course, we have Father Augustus Tolton.
Tell us a little bit about him, because he's also very recent. It's fairly recent, right?
Right. He's Father Tolton is there. He was in Chicago. He actually became the first Black or African American priest in the United States from the United States itself. And he wanted to be a priest, and he ran into racism because, remember now, priests, our Black Catholics were not actually allowed to join the seminaries that were already established. Most of our Black priests had to leave the U.S. Not until the Divine Word Ministries absolutely started their own seminary did we then have where our young Black men who were interested could become American priests. But Father Augustus Tolton, who is now his cause, we're praying for his cause for canonization, came out of Chicago. He absolutely started the Catholic Church in Chicago, at Parish. Unfortunately, he died very young there, but he was very, very committed, very instrumental. People, they loved him. And from what I understand in reading about him, he actually died out helping folks he caught. Well, you know how cold it is in Chicago. Well, so he caught his illness there, and he ended up dying there. But his cause, we're praying for his canonization. He's venerable. He's moving along. He's moving along.
Who's furthest along in that?
I'm sorry?
Who's furthest along in the canonization process? Would you say who's closest to needing a miracle?
Tolton.
Yeah, it would be Father Augustus Tolton. Absolutely. Okay. Yes. And then you have you got Henriette DeLille. Now she was a free woman, and when we say free woman, she wasn't born a slave, and she wasn't a slave, but she came out of Louisiana. And she was the founder of the Sisters of the Holy Family Order. Again, these are Black Catholics who wanted to be religious and wanted to become nuns. And so, as always, we had to form our own in order to be able to do it. But look at the commitment to be able to do that. Now, she was back 1812 to 1862. That's not too recent, but she's back there. We have Mother Mary Lang. Now, that's not too recent. Mother Mary Lang, again, was the founder of the Oblate Sisters of Providence out of Baltimore, Maryland. She founded that order of Black women who wanted to become nuns. And they did that back in 1829. 1829. Yeah, 1829. Because it's over 100 years old, the order itself. And we have Servant of God, Julia Greeley. And she was out of Denver, Colorado. And she was a philanthropist. And she died in 1918. But she's up to, again, experienced racism, was committed, did good works. So she is a servant of God. And then there's Pierre Toussaint. He came out of New York. He was a philanthropist back in New York at the time.
Originally from Haiti, and we have a center named after him. And I wanted to point out the Oblate Sisters of Providence worked at Holy Redeemer for many, many years.
Absolutely.
And one of them stayed on and kept working at St. Patrick for a long time.
Clementina.
Yeah, that's Sister Clementina.
We still have Sisters of Providence at St. Patrick.
We do.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, we do. Now, Sister Clementina, when I went to Holy Redeemer, she was my teacher and she became the principal and loved her throughout the years. She just recently retired from St. Patrick's and she's in Baltimore at the Mother House.
I think she retired from retiring because she was
retired. She did. Yeah, she was already retired. That's right. We, as a matter of fact, the impact that she had on us was that when she celebrated her Jubilee anniversary as a sister, as a nun, we flew to Baltimore to be there with her for that.
Oh, that's wonderful.
She's a wonderful, wonderful person. Now, the Oblate Sisters of Providence, when I was in the 6th grade, was the first time I saw a Black nun. That was the very first time. Before that, we had Immaculate Heart of Mary Sisters.
And the thing is, you mentioned this, and it is important because even when we talk about general vocations in general, if you don't see priests, if you don't see women religious, if you don't see nuns in the school, the thought doesn't occur. So, that might be a vocation, a calling that you have. So,
exactly.
Yeah. We're getting ready near the end. So let's talk about some of what you're planning for November for Black Catholic History Month, because you always have events and they'll be posted on our website, but just to give people an idea of what's coming.
Okay. The very first thing that we're going to do in celebrating in November is that on November the 8th, we will celebrate Mass at St. Augustine Catholic Church and Catholic Student Center in Coral Gables. Father Fagoa Richard Fagoa has invited us to come and celebrate. Archbishop Winsky will be the celebrant, and we will have the Mass in the tradition of our Black Catholic tradition. We will, of course, social distancing, live streaming. Normally, we would have everybody come, and we're inviting those who want to come out with us because we will have our music, we have the choir, we're going to have we have books, we have some things that we're going to do to celebrate. Now that's on November the 8th. It is the 12 o'clock noon Mass at St. Augustine. Now after that, our activities in the local parishes each parish will have an activity that they're going to celebrate the contribution of Black Catholics. But we also have the nuns, the candidates that we're talking about for sainthood. There is a program that's going to take place, a 3-part program in the month of November. This is a perfect place to learn about these candidates. It's called Celebrating the Cloud of Witness, Race, Resilience, and Renewal. And this is my commercial. I'm gonna hold this up. Hopefully you can see it. Okay, this is this is our brochure, and this is gonna be on the website. And it tells everybody it's a Zoom. You can sign in, and it's from 3 to 4:30, starting on November the 7th, November the 14th, and November the 21st. They're going to take 2 of the candidates each time, and you'll get to learn more about them. You'll get to learn how they were a witness to their Catholic faith. So we want to encourage people to participate in that. And then there are other Zoom meetings and webinars and programs and websites. If we just take the time to explore, there's so much to learn. And we become so much richer. One time I said at St. Anthony's in Fort Lauderdale, we were celebrating Mass and with the Archbishop. And I said, Archbishop, the Archdiocese of Miami is like a salad. It's like a real big salad. And really, it's a lot of lettuce. But who wants to eat a salad that's just lettuce? So think about all of the different cultures that you have here. We are the tomatoes and the bacon and the green peppers. And by the time you add all the Hispanics and our Haitian brothers and sisters, our African brothers and sisters, you just put all this stuff on that salad. In the end, you have the greatest salad that you could ever have.
Great.
Think about it that way. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Katrina. And so the Mass Sunday, November 8th at noon at St. Augustine in Coral Gables, that will be first come, first served, right? Or invitation?
First come, first serve.
Okay. And then the webinar, that's the good part of the new normal.
That's
you don't
right.
have to go anywhere. You
Don't
sit
have to go.
and watch the webinar.
That's right. You can sit, enjoy yourself, have your little favorite beverage, and just learn about the candidates themselves. Absolutely. And we will have our bookmarks to give out for you. There's information available.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And you can look up Katrina's information if you just look up Black Catholics on the Archdiocesan website. And I've done a lot of talking. So just remember, you can read, hear, and see more on how the Archdiocese and its parishes and schools are working with Black Catholics and doing our part for unity, as Dr. Edwards said. Thank you very much. And you can also follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you for listening to our show. Thank you, Rocio, Christina, Katrina, Dr. Edwards. And until next time, God bless and goodbye.
God bless you all.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
Yeah, everybody, yes.